Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to dive straight into a genuinely fascinating piece of modern pop culture. Today, we're dissecting the stylish art pop track, Champagne Personality. We'll explore its absolutely razor-sharp critique of extreme luxury culture, and maybe even more importantly, we're going to uncover the psychological void hiding just beneath the surface of the modern influencer lifestyle. It's a gorgeous, shiny world on the outside, but man, the foundation is incredibly fragile. Let's get right into it.
So, the track drops us right at the door of this wildly exclusive penthouse party. Just listen to this opening greeting. Influencers, visionaries, disruptors, and people with very expensive opinions. Welcome. Notice those specific labels, especially that last one, people with very expensive opinions. It completely sets the tone for the room we're walking into. We're entering an ecosystem where external validation is literally the only currency that matters. You aren't just a person in this world, you're a brand. You're a walk-in commodity.
Section 1. The Curated Fantasy.
Okay, to really grasp the sheer extravagance of this, what the lyrics call a caviar identity, we need to look at how it's defined. A champagne personality is someone living life in permanent publicity. Think about what that actually means for a second. This is someone who exists entirely for an audience. They're locked in the state of constant performance, keeping up this sparkling, perfectly manicured exterior at all costs. There is no off-stage here. The camera is always rolling, even if it's just in their own mind.
And the lyrics brilliantly highlight the total absurdity of their priorities. On one hand, you have staggering, almost comical material wealth, a handbag worth a small republic, smiles that are literally imported from Milan. But then, look at the flip side. Absolutely no actual plan. It tells you everything you need to know, right? The overwhelming curation is just a smokescreen. It's completely masking a total lack of internal direction or real personal purpose.
You know, this curation bleeds into absolutely everything they touch. The song paints this vivid picture of a guy wearing a watch the size of a satellite and a jacket stitched with gold thread dreams. But here's the catch. These items aren't meant to bring him any actual joy or comfort. They're engineered strictly for digital consumption. Every single object is just a prop for a never-ending photo shoot. Its value is 100% dependent on how it's going to look to absolute strangers on the internet.
Section 2. The Art of Distraction.
Now, when you pack a room full of these personalities, distraction practically becomes a high art form. Just listen to the loud, repetitive chatter at this party. If you want to fit in, you have to stick to the approved script. You talk about crypto, you bring up fashion, biohacking, somebody desperately drops the word fame, and of course everyone has very strong opinions about the color of this year's champagne. These are just shallow, trendy buzzwords. They sound super cutting edge, but they require zero actual emotional vulnerability to talk about.
But contrast that with what is strictly forbidden. The track makes it crystal clear. Nobody talks about loneliness, and nobody talks about fear. Uncomfortable questions, totally off the table in this luxury reality. The social contract here is incredibly rigid. You just don't ask anything that might shatter the illusion. I mean, acknowledging loneliness would instantly pop the bubble they've all spent a fortune trying to inflate.
So, the real kicker here is that all this over-the-top glamour isn't actually a celebration at all. More diamonds, more lighting, more reasons not to think. The lyrics literally demand more sparkle, more velvet, more imported self-esteem. Sure, they're dancing wildly in a ballroom shining like heaven's lobby, but it's really just a frantic distraction from themselves. The luxury isn't a reward, it's a numbing agent. They're layering on the diamonds and the filters so thick that they literally don't have a spare second to reflect on their own lives.
Section 3. Cropped out tragedies.
We've reached the emotional pivot of our explainer. Moving past the shiny facade, this lyric from the bridge is the stark emotional core of the whole track. It's honestly devastating. Behind every perfect photograph, 1,000 cropped-out tragedies. It exposes the massive psychological toll of maintaining this designer authenticity. Think about the energy it takes to edit your life down to just the flawless moments. You're actively cropping out failures, sadness, basically your own humanity. And just because you cropped it out of the frame doesn't mean it isn't still happening just off camera.
The song creates the sharp, painful contrast between the manicured public joy and a deeply hidden psychological void. On the outside, a dazzling smile, but on the inside, a private collection of anxieties. The track really hammers home that these figures are desperately running from their ordinary humanity. They are so terrified of just being normal, of being flawed, that they've traded any real peace of mind for a perfectly curated, completely hollow digital museum of themselves.
Even with 3 therapists and 2 nutritionists working overtime to keep the machine running, there's this unspoken agreement among the elite to just ignore the pain, keep the party going. Let's not ruin dinner with reality. It's such a profoundly cynical line, isn't it? Reality is treated like an unwanted guest, a faux pas that might spoil the caviar. They'd much rather live in a beautifully edited dream than deal with the messy truth of who they actually are.
Section 4. When the music dies.
But as we all know, no party lasts forever. When the lavish distraction inevitably fails, the track highlights a terrifying condition: luxury dependency. The influencer's entire sense of self relies entirely on the continuous presence and envy of an audience. As the lyrics shout, "Everybody look at me, everybody envy me," the performance lasts forever, as long as nobody leaves. Their identity is totally externalized. If a champagne personality throws a party and no one is around to film it, do they even exist?
And that perfectly explains why the party has to be so ridiculously loud. They are absolutely terrified of silence. The ultimate fear is that if the music ever stops, someone might accidentally notice why they came here in the first place. Without the thumping bass and the soft, forgiving glow of the chandeliers, the crushing reality of their emptiness would finally catch up with them. The noise is literally the only thing keeping the existential dread at bay.
The track's outro methodically maps out this heartbreaking sequence as reality finally sets in. It's a step-by-step breakdown. First, the last guest goes home. The audience vanishes. Second, the makeup fades. The curated facade starts to slip. Third, the music dies. The grand distraction is over. And fourth, the mirror remains. It strips away the luxury, layer by layer, until only the isolated individual is left, forced to stare at their own unedited reflection in a dead quiet room.
Which brings us to the haunting realization at the very end of the track. When the champagne finally goes flat, the velvet is packed away, and that digital audience vanishes into the night, who is left to impress? There's this deeply uncomfortable moment where they realize no one is there. So we're going to leave you with a vital question to ask about our own digitally curated lives. When we strip away the filters, the followers, and the expensive opinions, who are we really underneath it all?